Hi Leo, welcome to your mid-May 2020 tarot and astrology reading. Let's get straight into the astrology. The new moon in Gemini is at 2 degrees and it is receiving very strong support from Saturn. As we wrap up May, we are leading from the new moon in Gemini moon cycle to the Sagittarius lunar eclipse, this strawberry moon. And that's in your sector of love, of creativity, of children. Fifth house energy, you are the sign that represents the fifth house. So it's quite a pivotal point for you. In the meantime, the Gemini energy is very much to do with your social relationships, but as much as that, it's to do with your wish fulfillment sector. It's quite a magical spot, the 11th house. It's quite a magical place of where you figure out what it is that you want. And with the support of Saturn in your partnership sector, the sector that rules marriages, that rules committed partnerships, committed relationships, there is a wonderful time for single Leos to get very certain on what they want in the future. And if you're in a relationship, it is kind of a reset button on where you guys want to take things. Now, bear in mind, of course, Venus is in retrograde. And it's retrograding in Gemini, which is, of course, your 11th house. And now there's a lot going on in Gemini at the minute that you're aware of. There's the sun moving there. Gemini's ruler Mercury is there. Venus is there. And the North Node is now there in Gemini as well. And Mercury conjunct the North Node on the 28th. There is an opportunity to tap into potential. For those of you that are Leos who work in media or work in internet-based activities, very interesting time for you to pick up some untapped potential. Very interesting time indeed. As well as that, as we exit Taurus season, don't forget Uranus remains in your career sector, really pushing you to redefine it. And it can, of course, at times have felt quite chaotic in May time. But the energies of this new moon and the Gemini energy, what it wants you to examine, Leo, is where friendship matters. There could be old contacts from the past in terms of friendships that reappear because it's occurring in the 11th house, which I feel, the 3rd, 11th, I feel for you kind of represents technology. A lot of Leos could reach out to people from the past, or people from the past could reach out to you. That is the Venus retrograde theme. Don't forget to check out your rising for these matters because these are very astrology deep readings. The new moon in Gemini, nonetheless, is a fresh start in amidst a period of deep reflection, right? Confusing, I know, but it makes sense when you look back on it in a few months' time. In hindsight, it will all become clear. It's time to make a slow and steady recovery in your personal relationships. Venus is square Neptune, and that can feel very exhausting for you. Neptune is, of course, in Pisces in your 8th house, which rules death, it rules taxes, it rules the occult. And then, of course, that's connected with Gemini, which is all to do with the social relationships and where you're maybe investing a little bit too heavily in certain things. So there's a kind of conflict between your need for intimacy and connection with people as well as your need for friendship and to be amongst your peers and to be respected in both. To be respected both in the way that you love, the way that you connect, and the way that you work and the way that you play. All comes into focus. Now with Saturn in your relationship sector, it's about to retrograde back into Capricorn in the next couple of months. But it will revisit your partnership sector, so just be mindful of that. With Saturn making big, responsible reflections in your love life, what are you learning? And how are you going to take that forward in what you want to manifest for yourself next? Whatever it is that you want your love life to look like, your relationship life to look like, it's asking you to really revisit a few past lessons and maybe a few instances of karmic connections. So let's have a little look at your cards and dig a bit deeper, Leo. Four of Swords, Nine of Cups, Four of Cups, Ace of Cups, and the Moon. Oh my goodness me. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Underneath, Seven of Swords. Okay. There is a need in Gemini season, despite it being a very social time, a time where you want to connect with others. The retrograde is also exhausting you a little bit. And you need to be with the two fours here. You need to be very patient. It is a number 4 year. And fours are all to do with stability and structure. And you are asking a lot of yourself at the moment, Leo. I think for many of you, in some cases, Saturn is already exhausting you. And I think for others of you, Pluto, of course, in the 6th house with Capricorn energy, as well as Jupiter going retrograde. I think for a lot of you Leos, the retrogrades have sucked a bit of energy out of you initially. That will pass. Learning to say no is a big part of Saturn in your 7th house. It is a big part of establishing healthy boundaries. We're all taught to say yes, but we need to understand the importance of no. And the Four of Cups in the positive position, as something that is working for you, is the power of saying no to something. The power of saying no to an offer from the past that is not healthy. The power of saying no when somebody is asking you to reduce yourself in order to keep them happy. That's what Saturn in your relationship sector likes to teach you. Saying no to someone who lied in the first place. Maybe an earth sign. Maybe a Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus. Where you, Leo, are keeping secrets. The eclipses aren't really going to let that stay very hidden. It's not going to keep it hidden when we're approaching this Sagittarian lunar eclipse. Particularly in matters of love or in matters of children, the secrets that you're keeping are going to come out. Whether that's good or whether that's bad really depends on your personal circumstances, but I suggest if you want to get a head start on something that you would rather not come out dramatically, you could maybe start putting the PR out there, as it were. If something has recently come out around the Scorpio full moon, as it was a supermoon, and that is of course related to your family, it's also very much related to your privacy. If something came out, Leo, around then that you're really not proud of, the onus is on you to change it, but it's also on you to reflect on what aspect of yourself you might be rejecting. Moon and the King, Knight of Cups, and the Emperor. What's underneath that? 10 of Wands. Lovely. I think for a lot of you that are finding yourself in confusing love situations or confused about taking the next step, the energy that you need to encompass in making that decision, Leo, is whether or not it would make you feel like the best version of yourself. The Emperor has no problems in delegating. He's no problems in accepting responsibility either. In terms of his decision making, he's very Mars driven. Mars is currently in Pisces, which is a very intimate and deep side of the sky for you, and it can really unearth some things that you need to work on, particularly romantically. As well as this, the energies of the South Node now in Sagittarius, a lot of it is asking you to be firm with your boundaries and what you will and will not accept in romance, but it's also asking you to be gentle with yourself where there is an aspect of you that you feel like you're rejecting at the moment, where you almost feel a little bit sorry for yourself over something. The energies of astrology at the moment, at this year in general, is very heavy. Everyone is going to experience these bits and pieces of sadness and confusion and doubt. For you, I think Gemini season really sheds a light in where you could put your heart into something that makes you feel stronger. And as we approach the full moon in Sagittarius, which I'll talk more about in the June reading, as we approach that energy, the way that you love, Leo, comes into focus dramatically. But what about loving somebody where there's a firm foundation of friendship if you're single first? Maybe some friendships move from platonic to romance, and maybe some current romantic relationships would still do well with asserting some boundaries. Venus in retrograde in Gemini is going to make a lot of relationships crack under pressure, but it's also going to make a lot of relationships acknowledge the thing that they can't avoid anymore. And for people that are on their own, and even people in relationships, a lot of it is about facing a reality or a perception that needs to be acknowledged in order to let it go. Sucking the poison out to get better again. I think for a lot of you that's quite a healthy thing to do. I think the denial of something here, or the reframing the way somebody, idealizing somebody who maybe wasn't worth idealizing. If you're keeping secrets from a Virgo, or they're keeping secrets from you, that will come out. And I think you need to be very good at communicating about it. The Gemini energy is all about communication for everybody, but for you in particular, I think there needs to be a lot of ideas tossed out to discuss. The moon suggests that a lot of secrets are being revealed for you. The challenge is whether or not you accept yourself for them, and that you realize that you're still number one, regardless. I think for a lot of you that are falling in love or in the midst of new relationships, a lot of you are either setting too few rules or too many. There's kind of with the Emperor and the Ten of Wands, there's a heavy duty kind of energy in order to police certain things or police certain behaviors. And that's something that, it's so personal to people whenever Saturn retrogrades in their partnership sector, because we think about Cancerians that went through it for the last few years. It was very much to do about learning to love themselves first. That is kind of what Saturn is when it comes to relationships. Learning to love yourself first before somebody else can love you. And oftentimes we see with Saturn, it will throw you karmic soulmates and things like that in order to teach you that lesson. If you are rejected by somebody at the end of May, Leo, it's a good thing. Because there's a lot of stuff going on there that you don't want. If you're going into something new, be sure to set boundaries, but also be sure not to build so many barriers. Your uncertainty and anxieties leading up to the Sagittarian eclipse can be quite high. So be gentle with yourself and be patient with yourself, and have that self-care to know that you are a beautiful beast. Don't reject yourself, I think is what the cards are trying to say. And as far as romance goes, with Venus in retrograde, you don't have all the answers yet. That is okay. Taking things slow, taking things steady is something that is very apparent with the new moon and Saturn aspects. Taking things slow and building something up that's sturdy, building something up where you know that both people are putting in the effort, putting in the work, putting in the time. Queen of Wands, your energy. Seven of Cups. Amidst the confusion, committing to yourself. King of Pentacles, building something very sustainable to last. And there's the infinity symbol. In terms of love, by the end of Gemini season, I think you have a much clearer picture. So go steady. Don't jump to bad conclusions. Learn to say no, but as I say, know the difference between having boundaries and building barriers. That's what your key to discovery is for the remainder of May. I love you guys very much, and I will see you in June. Bye, Leo.